Hello, welcome to Africa Business Channel. On today's show, we're going to be talking about building a $1 billion business in Africa. Is it possible for somebody to build a $1 billion business in Africa? If it's possible, what would it take to build a $1 billion business in Africa? Let me know in the comment section if you think it's possible. And what do you think it would take? I'd love to hear what you think. And also, tell us what you think the challenges are going to be if you're going to build a $1 billion business in Africa. What exactly are some of the challenges that you think someone who is trying to do this is going to face? Please, we ask that you subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it goes a long way in helping us to build this channel. Secondly, we ask that you like the video. You know, when you like a video, you're telling YouTube that this video is important to you and that others should also see this video. And the third thing that we want to ask you to do is use your social media, share this video. You know, this video, we wanted to get to as many people, especially young people in Africa, because you are the future of Africa. You are the ones who are going to build these billion-dollar corporations. So we want to encourage you by, you watching this video and seeing how it's possible and how you can do this. Now let's get into the show. You have at your fingertips, using your cell phone, you have access to a world of information. You have access to information that your parents couldn't even dream of just a few years ago. You have access to all of that. And what that means is that if you need to find something or find some information to help you to do something, you just go online and it's right there. But for far too many of us, we don't see the internet as a source of money, as a source of information that we can use to build wealth. In America, young people see the internet as their future. They see it as where they're going to create their big companies. They're going to create their next Google. You know, just because Google started in America, just because Facebook started in America, doesn't mean that the next Google or Facebook has to start in America. It could actually start in Africa. So you have as much information at your fingertips as a young American person who wants to start a business and who's dreaming of one day building a $1 billion business. So you have access to the same information. And so you can access and search the same information that somebody in America is accessing, or somebody in the United Kingdom, or any other country for that matter. Let's take a look at the environment under which it would take for you to build a $1 billion business. In the United States, we have 330 million people. In Europe, we have roughly 430 million people. But in Africa, we have 1.3 billion people, which means we have a lot more people that we can build and sell things to. Now, there are some challenges to doing it. So let's take a look at some of the challenges and how we overcome these challenges. The first one is there are 54 countries in Africa. In the United States, right, we have 50 states. Now, when you travel from one state to the next state, there are no borders. The only thing that tells you travel from one state to the other is a welcome sign that says, welcome to whatever that state is that you're going. That's all you see. But in Africa, that's not the case. Each country has their borders, and those borders, they are truly borders. What is a border? A border is to keep something in or to keep something out, but it's a border nevertheless. So one of the things you're going to have to overcome if you really want to create a massive corporation, and you can, is how to figure out how to get whatever you make, whatever you produce across to other people in different countries. The good news is we have something called the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Now, I know most of you have never even heard the name Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. And the few who have heard it have no idea exactly what it is and how it works. So I'm going to explain in a few sentences as possible. Okay? The first order of business is the African Union realized that, hey, Every single country have their own rules in terms of what comes across the border and all the different things that you need and the paperwork you need. And that complicates selling things across the border. So they formed this agreement, all 54 countries, because it's called the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. That means the whole continent is in agreement with this agreement. The agreement streamlines as much as is possible some of the rules in terms of how you sell across border, what you have to do and what can come across and so forth. Streamline it as much as possible. So that's the first step. So the African Union, the African governments recognize there's a problem. And the problem is, if we don't do anything, it's going to be almost impossible to sell things across border. And, think about it. Some countries in Africa are so small. Eswatini is very small. Togo is very small. Benin, very small. These are small countries. Eritrea, small countries. But these small countries, if you want to create a billion-dollar company in those countries, it's almost impossible. But it's not. Why? Because you don't have to rely on just the customer base, the consumer base in that country. You can now rely on the full consumer base of Africa, which is 1.3 billion people. So this Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement sets the legal framework under which you can start to move and sell things. But let me ask you a question. If you started a business right now and you need to go sell across the border, let's say you started in Kenya and you want to sell it across to Tanzania, do you know what it takes? Do you know what the rules are? Do you know, even with the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, do you know what the appropriate regulations are that you're going to have to comply with in order to sell across the border? Most people don't. Most companies don't. And the funny thing is, even the big companies in Africa, most of them don't. But they need to sell across the borders to grow your business is there. So that's where we come in. We formed a company called Kubwa, Kuubwa. It's a Swahili word, it just means big or all-encompassing. But what Kubwa is all about is it's built actually around or built on top of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Why did we build this? We built this because we realized even though the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement is there, the average person trying to build their business is not going to have the time, the resources to even read the thousands of lines that make up the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. So we did the homework, the heavy work for you. So all you need to do is literally take your products and list them on our platform, Kubwa.com. And when you do that, everyone in Africa can see it. But not just everyone in Africa, the whole world can see it. But sticking with Africa for a moment. So now here's the challenge. Okay, suppose somebody in one country, country A, wants to buy something from country B. Let's say somebody in Nigeria wants to buy from somebody in Kenya. Well, on Kubwa, we handle the complex headache of shipping stuff behind. We handle the paperwork, the legal work, so that you can focus on just listing your product, selling the product, and delivering the product. You no longer have to sit there and try to figure out, oh man, how many, what are the regulations? It's too complicated. So Kubwa simplifies all of that. So Kubwa, in a nutshell, is a B2B or a business-to-business trading platform. Now, funny enough, we hope to grow Kubwa into $1 billion business, just like we're telling you it's possible. And so we are actually going to do exactly what we say or what we think is possible on this channel. We are also doing that. So we're going to be using Kubwa as an example, and we're going to talk about some of the challenges that we face as we're building out this whole trading platform. So we encourage you to start your business, and lots of you have great ideas about building your business. Building $1 billion business or building $1 million business, you're going to have a lot of the same challenges and you're going to be able to do the same thing. So all you're going to do is just scale it. Let me repeat. The difference between $1 billion business and $1 million business is the scale. Absolutely, the scale. And for those of you who do not know what scaling means, it just simply means that the size of it. You know, if you make something and it's one bucket and you double the buckets, that's doubling the scale. That's what I mean. So you just double what it takes, and then you have double the result. So that's what I mean by scaling. All right. I want to put a special shout out to young people because you are the future of Africa. The truth is, if you don't build these billion-dollar businesses, who is going to build them? Go ahead, tell me. Who's going to build the billion-dollar business? If you don't believe it's possible, then you won't even try. And it's possible, it's doable, and young people are going to do it. Remember now, as I said, you have an advantage over your parents and grandparents. You have access to a lot of information. And there is 1.3 billion Africans that need stuff. Africans need stuff. You know, in America, in Europe, in the West, we consume a lot of stuff. In Africa, not as much. That means there's so much opportunity for growth. Let me give you a simple example. Do you know most African farms use very little fertilizer? So if you started a fertilizer farm, even just using natural manure to make the fertilizer, there are lots of people who could use that. Because lots of businesses, lots of farms in Africa don't use as much fertilizer. And so they don't have the yield. They don't get the same results as big farms overseas who use fertilizer. And that's one simple little thing. So the need in Africa is great. But that means that there is tons of opportunity for you to build a business. Let's go on to the next step. All right. So yes, it's possible to build $1 billion business. Yes, young people, we're counting on you to go build it. Now I have a question. Does Africa have all it takes to build $1 billion business? In other words, do you need resources from outside? Not really. Most of the time you don't. Or if you do, you don't need as much. Because one thing Africa has in abundance is resources. If you wanted to start a jewelry business in Africa, there are gems upon gems upon gems. There's gold upon gold upon gold. There's diamond upon diamond upon diamond. People come to Africa and take the resources that Africa have and make fortunes. 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 With the resources from Africa. And all I'm saying is, we have that opportunity. What we used to lack was the knowledge. Where would we get the knowledge? You know, because we didn't have the knowledge, we didn't know it was possible, so we never even tried. But now we have access to the same information as everybody else. What are we doing with that access? We can use that access to teach ourselves how to build our own fortunes. That's what we're talking about. In this series, we're not just going to be talking about the fact that you can build $1 billion business in Africa. We're going to walk through the various steps that you are going to need, or you're going to need to execute in order to do just that. As we go through this series, I know some of you young people have great ideas, and you are saying to yourself, I don't know if I can make this happen. Yes, you can. You might be saying to yourself, when do I start? You can start right now. In the next series, we're going to go through, the steps that you're going to need as you start to build your $1 billion corporation. We're going to talk about what kinds of companies people can build, how they build them, and a whole bunch more. And we're going to also be going over the challenges that we face as we are building Kubwa. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't subscribed. Again, it costs you nothing. Please like the video. It goes a long way in telling the algorithms in YouTube that this is a channel, or this is a show that is important to people, and also please share the video with your friends, family, and anyone. Put it on your social media. We are thanking you in advance for doing that. So, until the next episode, thank you for watching.